You know, with a movie like this, it's only appropriate that the 4K Maverick reviews this bitch. What's going on, people? It's your boy, brasstax, baby. You already know, and if you don't, then you should. Then you should also know that it's Tom Cruise week, goddammit. Tom Cruise week. I already reviewed War of the Worlds. Then followed that up with Vanilla Sky on 4K digital. Now there's already a few reviews floating around of this on YouTube, and even the World Wide Web. But how appropriate that you've got your Top Gun to review Top Gun. Guys, I could be doing a million things, yeah, but if this movie is playing, I'ma stop everything and watch, because this movie is fun, it's a little cheesy, it's cool, and I love it. Did you know that Tony Scott was fired 3 times from this movie as he was filming it because it just kept going over budget? God damn. 3 times! You want to hear something else crazy? The original cut of this movie didn't even have a love scene in this, right? They took it to test audiences and they were like, listen, it needs a love scene. So post-production, they went back and filmed the love scene. That's probably why it's so silhouette-y and so, like, you don't see anything but you see stuff. Do you know what I mean? And think about it. If you didn't have that scene in the movie, you never would have heard Take My Breath Away. I ain't gonna lie to you, some of my subscribers, some of you guys may have been conceived whilst that song was playing in the background, if you get what I'm saying. That was the baby making anthem back then. As soon as we saw that scene, heard that song, people were remixing it, people were making love to it, god damn. You could take my word for it, guilty as charged. Now as far as Top Gun goes, I've seen 5 versions of this movie, god damn. The original 1080p Blu-ray, the 3D Blu-ray, the 1080p remaster that came with this disc, the 4K digital version on iTunes, and the 4K Blu-ray. Now let's leave out the 4K versions for a sec. As far as 1080p goes, my favorite version out of the bunch is the 3D Blu-ray. Overall, it wasn't an amazing 3D disc, but the fighter jets, all of the aerial shit, god damn, panty dropping to me, people, panty dropping. Now the original 1080p version of this was like the Donald Trump of Blu-rays, goddammit. And I'm gonna tell you why. It was a grainy, soft, orange mess. And I didn't like it. I didn't like the transfer, but I loved the movie. That's the great thing about 4K. You don't realize how bad a transfer looks until you see something better. Now the 1080p Blu-ray accompanying this 4K disc is mastered from a new 4K scan. Now although 3D is my favorite out of the HD bunch, this remastered Blu-ray looks very good. They've kind of removed the orange tone and it's got a little bit more detail than the previous 1080p Blu-ray. And another thing is it comes with the Atmos. 1080p with Atmos, that's what I'm talking about. Now if they could move the Atmos to the 3D, tasty baby. But most of you here don't care about 3D, you care about 4K, you care about the 4K-age. You know, I gave Iceman a ring and told him I was gonna do this review. You know what he said? He said that you're everyone's problem. That's because every time you do a 4K review, you're unsafe. I don't like you because you're dangerous. You know what I said? You already know. So you wanna know about a 4K transfer? I mean, I'll tell you, but then I'd have to kill you. But let's just live life on the edge, would you say? So Top Gun has a native 4K digital intermediate. We love that. I personally don't care, but you guys do. So there we go. We can rejoice. HDR10, Dolby Vision, Dolby Atmos. And you got the black bars, 109 minutes, a 66 gig disc, and it's out Monday, May 19th. Now I'm reviewing this 4K transfer against the original 1080p. I'll bring the remaster in at some point so you get the gist. And people, it is a solid, noticeable upgrade over the 1080p. Now grain is still here, but it's so much more better and refined on this transfer than it was on the 1080p. Don't get me wrong, it's still an 80s movie, so it's gonna have that 80s vibe to it, that 80s feel. Let's just be honest, those were the best years. And there are fairly soft shots scattered around this 4K disc, but the majority of it is gonna be the best Top Gun you've ever seen. Where the 4K-age really flexes its muscles is in the interiors. There's some locker room shots where Maverick and Iceman are giving each other dirty looks. You know how it goes. You know how this camaraderie starts. So first you don't like each other, then you love each other. The control rooms, the cockpit, and the classrooms where him and McGillis are just having their verbal joust about how he was inverted. Yeah, I know how he'd like to be inverted, baby. Those indoor scenes, you're seeing things there that you just didn't see on the 1080p. It's so much more detailed. And I'm gonna be honest, 4K makes McGillis look A1. Yeah, she was a little orange on the 1080p, but here, she's A1. I like the whole authoritative, I'm your boss kind of vibe. Turns me on, I ain't gonna lie to you. You know what really stands out in this movie? Which I never noticed before until watching the 4K. The sweat. God damn, the sweat looks so three-dimensional. It's so shiny, it's so pronounced. I mean, you realize they were sweating on the 1080p, but here it's just everywhere. Like, these guys are sweating constantly. I mean, you got specular sweat in the volleyball scene, on Goose's forehead, on Tom Cruise's forehead, on McGillis's forehead. A little bit on, well, anyway, yeah, you already know. So much sweat in the movie that I looked at the end credits to see if it was mentioned. Guys, the cinematography of this movie is fantastic, especially for its time. It was amazing. And even the fighter jets, although I think they were shot with different cameras, still have that 4K-age to them. Everything has a lot more detail, hair strands, wrinkles. You're noticing it all on this 4K release. Now, the original 1080p crashed and burned. The 1080p remaster recovered, but it was still writing checks its body couldn't cash. But in terms of visuals, the 4K Blu-ray is the clear winner here. The 3D really popped in the dogfight scenes, and it does the same thing here, just not quite as immersive, but it's definitely got an added layer of depth and three-dimensional space that the 1080p just doesn't have. The remaster has a little, but this is the one. So I guess you want to know what the HDR is like. Basically, you're Tom Cruise, you've got McGillis, she wants you, she's your boss, but that's what makes it sexier, right? Instead of having that silhouette sequence in Top Gun, what you say to her is like, listen, get on my bike, baby, let's go somewhere secluded, I know this very private place. And that's where you take her breath away. Do you know what I'm saying? Bars. Brights are very bright, darks are very dark. Now, we're not talking eye-squintingly bright, but you will appreciate HDR in terms of the sky, the way the sun rays hit. It's generally a fairly bright movie as well. It's much brighter than it was in 1080p. And I felt that the dark scenes on HD had a bit of crush. And with the added detail and the implementation of HDR, the black levels are so much more deeper here. But the real winner here is the wider color. A vibrant experience where it needs to be. The primaries have stepped their game up on this 4K-age extravaganza. I felt that the 1080p was oversaturated, and what they've managed to do with skin tones and the way the sun hits certain characters, they've toned that down and made it more natural looking, more realistic looking. When the sun is reflecting off Tom Cruise's aviators, it can be blinding in that respect. When light and the sunlight hits McGillis, you see her face light up in a natural looking way. You see, the 1080p was on a 10 the whole way through, and that's not natural. And what this does is it brings more subtleties and more vibrancies exactly where it should be. And the overall color is expanded. You're noticing different kind of shades of green on Tom Cruise's jacket, in the bar when they're singing "You've Lost That Love and Feeling" to McGillis trying to get her attention. It works every time, people. Every time I have an argument with my girl and I know I'm wrong, I pull out the guitar, start singing some shit. Guess what? You already know. Everyone's dressed in white in the bar. It's very bright. It's a perfect white. That's how it should be. Now, fellas, there's going to be scenes in this movie that you're going to feel like you're watching again for the first time. Because of the added color, the HDR, and the extra detail, you're noticing so many things in so many indoor scenes that you're just not going to notice on any other transfer apart from this one. Even the shadow details in the love scene are A1. Seriously. But if Tom Cruise or the fighter jets or Iceman don't do it for your girl, you look in her eyes, maintaining social distance, and you tell your girl to sit on the woofer and see what happens. She may be shot into outer space because the Atmos on this is an extravaganza. God damn. And let's just get this out of the way. The fighter jets, the dogfights are an Atmos showcase. Overheads, wide sound stage, rumble, oh my god, house shaking bass, low frequency extension will give you a rumble that will knock your testicles together in this bitch. There's surround sound throughout this movie. There's highs even in the bar scene when they're singing. It's crazy. Action front and center, around you and behind you. At most, you're gonna feel like your body was ambushed by Atmos. Bars. Dialogue is clear, crispy, detailed, subtleties. I mean, this is a reference Atmos track. What do you want me to say? By the time your girl comes back down from outer space, she's gonna leave you and marry the woofer because she's lost that love and feeling. And there's my thoughts on Top Gun in 4K. It is miles better than the original 1080p Blu-ray, and it is noticeably better than the remastered 1080p. I love the 3D Blu-ray of this. I really do, just for the dogfight scenes. But even saying that, this 4K Blu-ray is my preferred version. It's more sharper and more detailed than the 4K digital, and it beats the 4K digital. It doesn't even have Atmos, and with Atmos like this, it's a no-brainer. You go physical all day. I'm gonna give the visuals an 8.7 and the audio is reference, people. I'm gonna leave some Amazon links in the comment section so you guys can pick it up from there if you want, if you haven't got it already. If you go through that, it costs you nothing extra, but Amazon send a little kickback to your boy. And if you want to support the channel, I've got a Patreon and a PayPal me. So, feel free to do that if that's what you want to do. Take care of yourselves and stay safe. 4K Rockstar. You already know.